So, we are in on the system. We're just about to start, everybody, and welcome to you all. Thank you for coming along. Very much appreciate you coming along on this event that I've started at such short notice. I'm really pleased that we've got so many great speakers, so I'll tell you about them just in a minute. First thing I'd just like to say is a little bit about the way in which the meeting will run. And I'm going to put in the chat box. So you know the chat box down the bottom there? If you can have a look at that, you should be able to see the chat box. And in there, essentially, the way we're going to run the event is that please stay muted unless you're invited to speak. In the chat box, please leave comments in chat. Any conversation you want to say, that's fine. Say whatever you like. Post it to everybody. If you have questions to ask, which I'm hoping you will, that you will leave questions in the chat box, and Karen, who will be on the call, she will be actually monitoring who's asking questions. The event will be recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, just kind of hide your picture or whatever it is and don't speak, but otherwise please do, because that would be great. The event will be shared to different places later on, and the video might be cut up into different pieces according to the speakers and so forth. If you want to use social media and you want to hashtag anything, try using the hashtag #Councillors4Sustainability. That is in the chat box there. Can you see that in highlight? Does that work for you? I don't know. Probably can't. And a reminder that all views expressed in this event are those of the speakers themselves, and it's for information and education purposes. That is not necessarily represent the opinions or policies of North Somerset Council or of the councillors in the council, and so you're invited to bring your own judgment to the accuracy and relevance for yourself, so you make your own mind up on that. So going back to please mute if you're not speaking, and I think we're nearly ready to start. I was hoping that Councillor Bridget Petty was going to be here, but I haven't seen her. She was going to say a quick couple of words because she's the exec member for this whole arena on North Somerset Council, and as a result of her and a number of other issues going on and the carbon literacy event and day that she ran, this is the outcome of that, basically. It's my personal decision to run it, and this is the very first one, so it's very exciting. The first speaker we have tonight is Professor Simon Baughen from Swansea University. I will let him give you a bit more of a brief introduction to what his background is, but he's going to share some slides as well, all being well. And we'll start with Professor Simon Baughen. Thank you, Simon.
First of all, I'll unmute myself so you can hear me. And I'm now going to try and put my slides up. So this should be the slides. Share. And here we go. The hidden cost of shipping. I'm a professor of shipping law at Swansea University's Institute of International Shipping and Trade Law, and I also live in Bristol, so I have a local connection. And I'm very glad to be able to be invited to speak here. I'm going to look at something which I'm researching quite a lot about, and in fact at Swansea, other people in other disciplines are researching into climate change. There's a lot of activity in the engineering department about the possible development of hydrogen as an alternative fuel, which is particularly relevant to shipping, which at the moment is running on fuel oil, which is not good for greenhouse gas emissions. So the hidden cost of shipping is going to look at two things: the effect on greenhouse gas emissions as regards the costs of the stuff which we import and use in our daily lives, the stuff which actually comes in on those big container ships. And then the second aspect is the costs of shipping it here, the greenhouse gas emissions which are being created by all those container ships and tankers going around the world, giving us all the benefits of international trade. But there's a cost, and there is quite a substantial cost on the global environment. So I would actually, just before I get on to the greenhouse gas of imported things, a few little statistics. It has been calculated that about 11% of our UK food emissions comes from imported food, and there's another 11% statistic, which is 11% apparently of global emissions from food tend to come from waste of food. So there, is something we could think about right from the start, and that 11% is something which we come across in the next slide, this slide here. Deforestation. We've seen the David Attenborough programs. I think we all know about what's happening in the Amazon, and the problem is that deforestation is estimated to be responsible for about 11% of global GHG emissions, and we need forests to mitigate against the CO2 we've already put into the atmosphere. And one of the things which worried me when I was researching this is that we import a lot of soya into the UK to feed our domestic farm animals, and a lot of soya has come from Brazil, either from the rainforest, which has been cleared for agricultural purposes, or an adjacent area, which I think featured in David Attenborough's recent programs, the Cerrado. And we've got very little means of working out, what we, is our chicken burger, is this something which has been fed on soya, which has been farmed on deforested areas of the Amazon? Apparently 2.5 million tons of soya is imported into the UK each year, and a large amount of that is used to feed farm animals, and about a third of this comes from Brazil. And the problem is that about 14% only of soya imports are certified to be deforestation free. So there's a big chance that just by the ordinary act of eating animals which may have been produced, been farmed in the UK, nice and local, you may be contributing to deforestation in Brazil through the use of soya, which may well have come from deforestation and the conversion of forested areas in the Amazon to agriculture to grow this soya. And the next food stuff, well, it's actually more than food stuff, is palm oil. It goes into so many products. I mean, it's pizzas, donuts, nut butters, and also into cosmetics. Your shampoo, your deodorant, your toothpaste may have it. And that comes from principally forests in Indonesia. And there's been a great deal of deforestation going on there. So we, by just innocently using these products, we may well be complicit in deforestation. And deforestation is really bad news for what we've got to do to address the relentless rise of global temperatures. Now, the other thing I've got, and I don't know whether you can see my wonderful slide here, which is fast fashion. I tried to get something which looked as eccentric and as wonderful as possible. And it was either this or John Paul Gaultier in shorts, and I thought this is sort of more appropriate. Fashion, not something I've ever been guilty of, but as my wife often tells me, fashion accounts for about 10% of greenhouse gas emissions from human activities. And one little startling statistic is about 70 million barrels of oil a year are used to make the polyester fibers for our clothes. So, this is again something one might need to just bear in mind. And the other thing about fashion is that most of it is made now in places in Southeast Asia, and one of the little slide I got here is a reminder of the conditions which people who make our t-shirts are working under. I mean, this is the unfortunate collapse of the Rana Plaza building in Bangladesh back in 2013. It is actually a slightly complicated issue about our relationship with constant fashion, in that apparently workers in Bangladesh are actually going hungry at the moment because of the drop in demand for fashion as a result of the COVID emergency. So nothing is ever completely clear cut, but I think our habits of buying so much clothing is having an effect on raising greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I'm going to look, I've only got 10 minutes and I'm just going to check. I thought I had a clock. John, how am I going for time? Am I about the 5-minute mark?
You have used 6.5 to 7 minutes.
Right, I need to speed up quicker than this boat here. The second thing is the effect on emissions of shipping itself. Shipping is responsible for about 80% of world trade. It's certainly a lot better way of getting things around than road and air. But one of the statistics which people perhaps are not aware of, global shipping as a whole contributes about 2.7 to 3% of CO2 emissions. If it was a country, it would be around the same emissions as Germany. It's completely outside Kyoto and Paris. And everything has really been left to this international UN organization called the International Maritime Organization. And here's a little picture of some of the Extinction Rebellion people last year in 2019 who were protesting outside the London headquarters of the IMO, basically saying the IMO is not doing quickly enough in regard to regulating international shipping as regards greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, it's done a few things. It's got measures saying that new vessels have to be more energy efficient. It's got reporting obligations about fuel used, and it's adopted some greenhouse gas reduction targets in 2018. And at the moment, it's doing a lot of talk about what it ought to be doing next. Well, that's not really going to help. Now I'm switching now to something which is a bit more hopeful here. The EU. Something you've heard about this lady von der Leyen. She apparently had a very nice dinner with Boris Johnson the other day, but she's the new president of the EU, and she came up with the EU's Green Deal in 2019. And this woman is Jutta Paulus, who, taking up suggestions from von der Leyen, said, well, why don't we amend the EU's reporting regulation so that international shipping goes into the emissions trading scheme. And effectively that means if you go into the EU or voyages out of the EU, you're going to have to make payments based on your carbon emissions from your previous port or the destination port you're going to go to. It will cost you. And that was approved by the European Parliament in September 2020. So, something may very well happen next year. And shipping, is there a technical capacity for international shipping to decarbonize? And I think there's been a lot of developments over the last few years. I mean, hydrogen is probably going to be the thing which will be the ultimate replacement, particularly hydrogen fuel cells. And already we've seen some small vessels being powered by this, and other options are sails, something which may be feasible if you're prepared to take the hit of slower speed. Some people have suggested liquid nitrogen gas, very easy to retrofit ships to do about. The trouble is liquid nitrogen gas emits methane in its life cycle, and that's not good for GHG. Slow steaming is another thing which could actually be imposed straight away and could give a 30% reduction in carbon emissions. Another possibility is electrification of the docks, so that when you come into dock, instead of using your own power, you plug into the local grid. And that would be great as long as that power comes from renewables. And that's something the EU's proposals wants to see happen. My rather sarcastic little slide, another form of power might be hot air from the International Maritime Organization.
Have another minute, please, Simon.
Okay. What can we do? I think bear in mind reusing and repairing. This is something, again, which you get seen in the EU's Green Deal. They're trying to make it easier to get stuff repaired. Ask yourself, do I really need to upgrade to an iPhone 13? What about wearing the clothes that you buy and keep wearing them rather than buying lots and lots of stuff? You know, do you really need a one-off item for your end of COVID party sometime next year? And I would think about buying less and buying local. So I think I've come in under time and I've docked, and over to you, John. Now I need to stop sharing.
Thank you very much.
And mute.
Appreciate that.
How do I mute?
And our next speaker on this kind of foray into buying local, shopping local, is Libby Watts.
Hi, I think I've unmuted myself successfully. Hi,
Excellent.
I'm Libby
Welcome.
Watts. Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to the talk. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Libby Watts. I run the online community group called North Somerset Reduce, Reuse, Recycle. And I'm here today because I think really reducing waste. I work in the waste industry. I've worked in the waste industry for nearly 13 years. And reducing your waste is very much in tune with shopping locally because we promote it quite a lot on our group, and we think that if you shop locally, you have more chance of buying things in plastic free, which is the kind of obviously the trend at the moment, as well as reducing your waste. This idea of kind of consumerism, buying goods, do we really need all the stuff that we have? So just to give you a bit, I'm gonna share now. Are we on? Is that working? Hello?
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah, you're good.
It's okay, is it? Yeah. So I'm hoping everyone can see that. So we're on, the first slide is why shop locally. So just to give you a bit of a background to kind of the business population in the UK and locally, we have about 6 million businesses within the UK, and of those businesses, 96% of those are what we call micro businesses. So that's 0 to 9 employees. 0 employees would be obviously your sole traders, and then the next step up is 1 to 9 employees. I mean, obviously, micro businesses in the UK, a lot of that would be made up of things like, you know, tradespeople, plumbers, electricians, all that kind of stuff. But also a large proportion of them are craft businesses, independent coffee shops, restaurants, whatever you can think of, retail, hospitality, all that kind of stuff. And within North Somerset, there are about 8,000 businesses, and micro businesses make up about 90% of that number of businesses. So it is quite a substantial proportion. So I suppose the way to say it is small businesses, big business really. So I think that comes sometimes as quite a surprise to people because big businesses, when they move into areas, are seen as kind of a big employer and stuff, but actually small businesses employ a lot of people. The small businesses are actually the biggest employer in the UK, around 48% employment, against 39% for large businesses. So obviously, as I say there, it saves and creates jobs. jobs. It creates competition. More people shopping locally drives greater demand and choices. Basically, if you shop locally, you're putting money into the local economy. You're giving businesses the opportunity to buy more. So if you want something and they can bring it in, that means it's obviously creating more and more goods that you can buy. In terms of putting money back into the local economy, they say that for every £1 you spend in a local shop, you're actually putting between about 56 and 63 pence back into the local economy, compared with larger shops where you're only putting about 35 to 40 pence back in. But actually, when you look at it more logically, if you spend money in a local shop who employ local people, who buy their goods from local stores or suppliers, then you're actually putting a lot more in. So there is the potential to put up to about £1 back for every £1 you spend. So potentially putting £2 back into the economy, into the local economy. Small business owners, 50% in a recent survey, 50% of small business owners believe that if every person spent just £5 in their local shop, that could keep them going in the long term. So basically the message really is shop and support local to allow us to stay local and employ local people. It's safer and more convenient to shop locally. Obviously in our present circumstances, it's a lot easier for people to walk to the shops and, they can buy things in your local shop. And I think people are more comfortable with that as well. Obviously smaller shops, they kind of tend to let less people in. And that makes people feel safer within their local area. Builds a stronger and more resilient community. I mean, we've seen a lot recently of kind of local businesses doing things like delivering food to vulnerable people, and also people who are, like, say, self-isolating, and also just has the benefit of bringing people together and making a better community. It has, as Simon has kind of mentioned before, it has massive environmental benefits, both on a local and global scale. I mean, simply put, you can actually walk to your local shop, so obviously you don't have to drive your car. But also in terms of goods and things, there is all these hidden costs of emissions of goods that come from abroad, come from kind of overseas into our country. So if you can buy local, then it's much better for both our health in terms of pollution, but also in terms of emissions of greenhouse gases. Customer service is more personal and personalised. I mean, I found recently that I've basically committed to saying that I only want to buy gifts from local crafters in local stores, and most of them will actually do personalised gifts for you. So it could be just a Christmas present, putting their name on it, or I got some gift cards made, Christmas cards made by a local business up in Portishead, who and she basically everything that she made was out of reused and recycled material. So it's, to me, that's quite important. Go on to the next slide. And then I guess the last point on that, sorry, on that last slide, is just to say that 40% of people do Christmas shopping in November, 20% do in December, apparently, and the rest spread it across the year. So another 40% spread it across the year. So I suppose the message, because we're obviously halfway through December and many people might have already done all of their Christmas shopping, but I think the message that we need to tell people is not just shop locally for Christmas. It is shop locally all the way through the year. Think about what you can do in terms of food shops. Think about whether you can avail of the local veg box deliveries that are abundant across North Somerset. And it's just supporting businesses in that way. So it's not just thinking about whether you can get gifts off from a local person or a local business rather than gifts online. because apparently another statistic which I heard was quite shocked by, apparently 65% of us are actually shopping online this year over Christmas, so it's quite high and it seems to have shifted quite a lot. How much time do I have?
Libby, you got about a minute.
Oh, okay. I think this how to shop locally will probably be a joint effort between myself and Paul anyway. So,
Okay.
I think we're going to send out this leaflet that has all the links and things. I think John's going to send it out afterwards.
That's
which has all
absolutely
the links
right.
and things.
And if you have any
Yeah.
questions coming in, any thoughts coming in, please put them in the chat room so that we can ask the questions in about 10 or 15 minutes time, okay?
So that was
So
the links.
everybody
I'm
that's
just going
here,
to
put your chat questions into the chat box.
stop sharing, I think.
And yes, all the slides will be circulated afterwards as well to you all. Libby, thank you very much for that. We'll catch up with you again in about 10 minutes time. So our other speaker is Paul Batts, and I'll let Paul introduce himself to you. Hey, Paul.
Okay, thank you for joining us. I'll do a quick introduction to myself. I can see some familiar faces here that I know. Good to see you. For those that don't know anything about me, my business is based in Weston-super-Mare, so I'm your good old British shopkeeper. I've owned the business in Weston-super-Mare for 13 years, but have retailed for all my life, 38 years. My shop, for a little shop in Weston, we were voted Britain's best independent outdoor store, and we made it to the final of Britain's best small shop, which was very proud to represent Weston. I should say, we're the only shop from Somerset that made the final. Only 25 shops out of tens of thousands of shops from around the country made the House of Commons. As a little bit of a backstory on the green side, which people hadn't realised until more recent times, when we started the business 13 years ago, we vowed never to use a plastic bag in the business. It was a personal decision. We didn't make anything of it at the time, but it's obviously gone on to be a much bigger issue. And the outdoor industry has been quite ahead of the sort of the green tide, because people who are out in the outdoors tend to sort of want to preserve it as well. We also, when we started the business, didn't want to use new displays and things. So personally, we've upcycled, recycled, made a lot of our own displays in the shop. We use green energy suppliers. I've been through the journey of having hybrid cars when they were out, a plug-in hybrid, and have eventually got onto an electric car now, which leads to a lot of other discussions with customers. We're also part of the community in that we're the Scout shop for North Somerset, and also the Cadet shop. So that's a bit about sort of me. Why shop local? Well, as Libby mentioned earlier, one of the biggest benefits to shopping local is the pounds that you spend in your local shops. Libby had some figures. One of the one we have that we share is that we have some of these leaflets available, which is just reminding people that for that pound spent in a local independent business, approximately 50 to 70p recirculates into the local economy, because as Libby said, you're using local suppliers, tend to purchase things locally and use other local supplies. One of the scarier figures is I've seen figures a lot lower than Libby's, that some of the national chains, for pounds spent in some of the larger national chains, it can be as low as 5p that returns to the local economy, which is obviously not great. We're desperately trying to increase, footfall in all our towns in North Somerset. COVID's obviously not helping with that at the moment, and COVID has actually accelerated what was a huge change in the retail market, especially as far as high streets are concerned. All our towns locally were started with small independent businesses, and then what you found over the years is the bigger businesses muscled their way in and usually took all the prime selling spot. What we're seeing now is the large chains disappearing, and the focus is going to be back on using our local independent shops, which has benefits, to the environment, about the packaging issues. Everyone ordering things online, it means that there's just more delivery drivers racing around in diesel vans trying to do 100 deliveries a day. when you could walk into a shop, you know, purchase something without all that packaging. There's also a point of contact issue for shopping local, in that invariably, as things do go wrong on times, and not everyone who delivers from online gets it right, and sometimes that can be a complete nightmare trying to return things or get a point of contact. At least when you're buying things in your local shop, you know, you can go back and have a conversation with someone. And as part of the community, what we're trying to do nowadays is restore a sense of community. Lots of towns have felt they've lost that where the bigger companies have come in. What we really want to do is get people back into their shops, talk to your local shops, and also get the local shops to talk to each other. As I say, we're based in Weston-super-Mare. We have two great little independent areas in Orchard Meadows and Grove Village, and all our towns in North Somerset have so many great individual businesses. It's just that they might not be, you know, somewhere immediate for you to find them. And the websites that Libby mentioned, there's lots of work that North Somerset are doing in terms of just trying to promote shop local initiatives. Having conversations is another issue. Having conversations with your customers, getting shops in areas to talk to each other is really important, because you can share so much information. You can help each other out with matching products, and also getting recommendations from shops, from either from customers or from shop to shop. Personal recommendations carry so much more weight than reviews, and as a lot of you probably know, a lot of reviews that are online are quite fictitious, or have been paid for indirectly in some way. There's also another social side to shopping local, which probably gets overlooked quite heavily, and that is the fact that as human beings, most of us, not everybody, but most of us actually quite like having conversations with other people. So going into your local shop, having a conversation with someone. Most of your independent shops tend to be owner occupiers, and they have a vested interest in giving, you know, better service or being a bit more helpful than someone that may be just clock watching till it's time to go home or it's lunchtime. So the other thing is that there's a lot of old people and younger people who live on their own, who their one and only trip into town in the week could be that one visit to a few shops, and having a conversation with someone might be their only conversations of the week. And it's nice to just, whether it being just going into the greengrocer or something and, you know, getting a few extra apples or something, that could be their only conversation. So it's something that's easily overlooked by lots of people that are in couples, relationships, families and things. There's a lot of people out there on their own who don't benefit from day-to-day conversations. The other one is shopping in large chains has become very impersonal. So from the supermarket experience, whilst it's all very convenient and we probably all use them, for a lot of people, you know, you literally go in, you self-select a lot of items, you go to a checkout where you're pretty much hurried through as fast as you can, and out the door again. And quite often, you know, the cashier looks very surprised if you actually try and have a conversation with them. By shopping in your local shops, most people want a conversation. It's just part of the daily routine. And again, it helps, you know, spread the word for other shops. Someone might be struggling to buy a product. Some of the local shops might well know another shop who might stock that product. And then finally, so as not to rabbit on, as Libby said earlier, we again have some of these leaflets. These are all available. This is the one that just applies to Weston, but I know other towns are using it. It's going back to that. This one is just as a fact, every adult in Weston-super-Mare spent another £5 per week in a local independent business. It would actually bring £14.8 million into the local economy, which safeguards jobs and creates a better area, you know, to live in. The numbers can be worked for all your different towns. As I say, finally, and get rid of me now, if more of us were to shop local and recommend local to friends, the big benefit is it actually improves local, and I think we would all like to see that. And that's me. Thank you.
trying to unmute myself. Thank you very much indeed, Paul. So that was really good timing. Perfect. So my question now, I've asked Karen to actually keep a track on any questions in the chat box. Anybody else? I know I've asked a question too, but anybody else asked any questions?
Apart from you and me, I can't actually see any questions yet.
Go for it. What's the first question then?
Well, mine was a question to Simon. It's a bit specific, but there are now so-called meat products, vegan meat products. What about their carbon footprint? I'm never quite sure whether they're a good idea or not. Have you looked into that? You're still muted, Simon.
There we go. I haven't, and I'm very glad you raised that. It's one of my daughters is vegan, so I shall have to get her to give me some information about that. I mean, I don't think she actually eats vegan meat. I mean, but she does eat, a lot of corn, and I don't know what corn comes from. Is it soya? I mean, so there are sourcing issues with that, and I think whatever food you're eating, I think I think one needs to be aware of the wider issues in the production of that food, and the more you can find out, the better. And I'm afraid you've set me a challenge, which I shall have to take instructions from my daughter about.
That sounds all good to me. Anybody else got any answers to that question, by the way? Libby, Paul?
Not that I can think of.
Only just to say that corn is a fungi, apparently.
Isn't there something?
It's not soya.
But there's something which goes with soya, which is for vegans, isn't it? I can't remember. I have to ask her.
So it's like the kind of, obviously the textured protein kind of stuff is normally soya.
Yeah.
But
So cool. So it's a really good question. Really good
I don't know if
question.
somebody else who eats corn might know better than me. Apparently it's made in northern England somewhere.
Local,
Almost.
So good question. More research. Get the answer back to you in the feedback afterwards. All right. So we'll do that. And I'm sure somebody will come up with a great answer and reason why it's important or not, and how it all works. So, and also the impact on shipping, no doubt. Okay. What was the next question, please, Karen?
Well, they're from being a very specific one. This is a very general one, and that's with regard to shipping, what one thing might I do to make a difference? That's probably for Simon as well.
That might be for Simon, yes.
Yeah.
Important.
Before this started, I said, I bet there are no questions concerning shipping, and I'm fielding 2 questions already, but that's great. One thing, oh gosh, I'm going to suggest something a bit quirky. Next year, UK is going to be hosting COP, and it's going to, if the EU has gone ahead and actually acted on the proposals and is bringing out a regulation to put international shipping and its CO2 emissions into the emissions trading scheme, well, I think we should be putting the pressure on our government, which of course will no longer be subject to future EU regulations because of the culmination of Brexit on the 1st of January. We should put pressure on our government to do something similar, and writing to one's MP and just sort of making a fuss, maybe getting, it sounds a bit odd, sort of should we have our own emissions trading scheme for shipping? Well, yes, I think we should, and I think that's what I will suggest.
Okay, thank you.
So I might ask you even write that question down, the answer down for us sometime as well, please, Simon.
Well, I think that may actually
be specific about what action we could choose to take.
Write to your MP about it, but obviously, if the EU
about specifically what
this assumes that the EU actually comes up with this regulation. It will look a bit. It'll look a bit silly if it hasn't. But if the EU does next year get a regulation out well, actually an existing regulation amended, we should write to our MP saying, we think we need to do the same. We need to have our own emissions trading scheme extended to international shipping, which comes into British ports from countries other than the EU. And I say countries other than the EU because the EU will be running its own emissions trading scheme for international shipping.
That sounds cool, Simon. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. And Karen, do we have any more questions?
There was one from Bridget just now, and then one from Gemma.
Oh, well spotted. Oh, I see it. Do the panel think that advertising is a problem? Should it be banned, reducing fast fashion appeal? So there you are. There's a question for the whole panel. Do the panel think that advertising is a problem?
Definitely. I think people are too easily led by advertising. We in the outdoor industry have seen this a lot, and we're a specialist footwear supplier. We see lots of problems with people that are just led by, huge amounts of TV adverts promising things, and this applies, to all products. I think there's a large element of society that are very easily driven because it comes into their living room every night, and you're almost lambasted with some of it. This product's amazing, but there's also a very large selection of society that are doing a bit more homework regards fashion. So certainly there's a lot of people are looking at investing in something. So rather than just buy the for now option, perhaps I would consider not buying the now option, save up a little bit more money and buy the long-term option. We're certainly seeing that in terms of outdoor footwear. So where people were spending slightly less before, they're actually considering a long-term approach in terms of clothing as well. And actually I'll buy one good thing that might well come with a lifetime guarantee than necessarily buy the cheaper thing that in 2 years time is going to landfill or being a waste. But yes, advertising has, it's obviously driven by big money, but yes, it is a big problem.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I think as well, I'd probably away from fashion, but more, and I'm sure Bridget would agree with me in terms of toys for children. I think it would, certainly myself with 2 small children, and Christmas coming up, they're not really at the age where they can ask what they want from Santa, but certainly the majority of their toys are coming from charity shops, second-hand toys, and bought online second-hand, and I think we should be pushing that really, especially for people with small children, not to have to buy new all the time. Same with clothes, buy second-hand where you can. There is, there's a small issue of microplastics from kind of washing second-hand clothes, but I guess it's better to buy second-hand than it is to buy new. And certainly to buy new and only wear once and then throw it away, which is an awful lot of particularly kind of teenagers and young people do nowadays.
Also from a shopping local point of view, local shops tend to know about recalls and things. So certainly when you're dealing with young children's toys, that's a very important thing. And I know Amazon have been hit quite heavily recently because they've grown so big. They've actually got an awful lot of children's toys that have been banned by so many countries still available on many of their sites, and it's just because they're so big they literally can't police it. They give out lots of polite we're dealing with it and all this usual stuff, but at least when you're dealing with shops, you're normally made more aware of recalls, or they can tell you about products that have issues, especially to do with filling and buttons and things like that for small children. Yeah, quite an issue.
I would add, beware of the internet. The internet is a great form of self-directed advertising, just scrolling around and then you go click, 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 so beware of it. Beware of what have he called, influencers, those things which young people sort of look up to and must have this, must have that. And so beware, if you're a younger person, not somebody like me who doesn't go online for social media or anything, but beware of peer pressure and must have this because my friends have got it, and but of course this actually is the backbone of the world economy, isn't it? I mean, we are in an economy based on consumption, and if people take my advice, we might be consuming less, and we might have devastating effects on the economy. Mr. Sunak will not be pleased. Anyway, that's probably a bit controversial. I'll mute myself now.
John, do you mind if I come back briefly on it?
Go.
I think that I think you're very right, Simon. I think it's interesting. So 10 or 20 years ago, the way that we received our advertising was very much predominantly through watching television and having television advertising or magazines and newspapers. But what happens now is many people of different ages use the internet and use different social media channels in different ways. And it's so targeted. And I did just start watching Social Dilemma last night, which is a current documentary about that. And it's just, basically Facebook knows that people like Libby and I are already green and active, and then they hone the advertising specifically to be brands that are, it's quite a green brand, it's not Patagonia but similar, and so you're receiving your messages in a different way, and actually potentially we don't have training, we haven't been educated in where we are having advertising at us. And there was some stuff about some of a Scandinavian country that was doing a bit more work on that, and it's just like our wanting of stuff and our consumption behaviors fuel the whole world economy, so it's in the big money's interest for us to keep wanting to purchase, and I think there's a lot associated with as much to do with that. And so I think it's quite interesting. I don't think anyone falls through that gap each time we engage with media.
Top tip is to make sure you clear all your cookies down on a regular basis so they don't know.
Okay, good.
It's so easy to do that. You just happened to mention Patagonia, which is a really interesting one within the outdoor trade, because they were had up for some really bad practices and had to change their fortunes around, but they won't tell you that now, whereas a lot of the other brands who were very slow to bring forward their green credentials have done a lot better. But again, that's the power of media. So many people buy into Patagonia for other reasons nowadays, but they're not as squeaky clean as they, and that's the trouble, as you said, Bridget. Influencing and everything's targeted these days. So as soon as you affiliate yourself something to a product, a brand or something, things get filtered that way.
And it's
and
about
of course
doing your research, isn't it? I guess that.
Well, and that's the thing, that's the trouble. It's where do you get your information from? Who can you trust nowadays? We get so many different stories coming in the shop, dealing with a whole range of products, whether it be, clothing, footwear, or other products. And it's amazing what people have either been told, and some of it's, completely irrelevant to that product. But somewhere along the line, they've been influenced or have been told a product was good for this or that. We're seeing massive problems with people with footwear nowadays, off the back of a few years ago it was Crocs, and then more recently it's Skechers, and they're causing lots of people lots of foot issues. But the thing is, they say they've got a huge marketing campaign, they're on the telly all the time telling you how wonderfully comfy they are, and yes they are, but they're not actually good for your bones and foot position.
So that's all the advertising for us, isn't it? So I've got another question here as well. I noticed that
Gemma had a question.
Should or could the government increase tax on non-local or non-national businesses to improve the situation? I guess that's the question there from Johnny. Any points of view on that one?
Oh, it's well, that is a big one, isn't it? funny enough, I've just come off a conversation with one of our suppliers today that, dare I mention the B word. There are taxes within certain products. We're looking at some products that are very popular sellers with ourselves here, something that currently retails for £160. Depending on what happens within the next matter of weeks, this product could be 180. It could even be £200 by January, which will have a huge effect on its sales. But it's certainly something that needs to be looked at more. Is the mileage, the real mileage of products, because it's very easy these days. So many products come from so far away and are ridiculously cheap that it doesn't quite add up. And we're certainly seeing people, as I mentioned earlier, people wanting to invest in something, for a longer time. So they're actually looking away from the, what was the made in Taiwan, but is now a lot of things from China. They seem to come over to this country ridiculously cheap, and perhaps there should be some form of distance control.
So that's interesting.
On that.
I think that's very interesting. I think there's a question here from Nick Carter-Brown saying, so maybe could the labeling regime, traffic light ABCD style as electrical efficiency, be used for products and countries of manufacturing, maybe enabling consumer choice? Is that a way to think about it? What do you think?
There is funny actually. There is actually, well, the labelling is coming out, isn't it? Or at least it's been discussed, and I think Cllr actually now have carbon labelling on their products, do they? Or are they going to bring it in? I'm not really sure whether they have it yet or not.
Sorry, who's that?
But I certainly saw that they were considering.
You're breaking up a bit there, Libby. You might have to.
Corn. As in what we were talking about before,
I got it.
The food. Corn.
So is that an area that if it's not really happening,
I don't know of anyone else.
You think people should be lobbying for, or is it happening?
I think it's worked very well in the food industry. So it would be nice to see it, apply to more products, because as I say, going back to the clothing issue, there's so many issues to do with fabrics and clothing. A lot of the outdoor brands now are recycling more elements of their clothing, because the whole point of enjoying the outdoor lifestyle is that you are not sort of destroying the environment that you like so much. So being able to reuse products down over the years, which is why I mentioned the Patagonia thing, has been a huge issue, because there are some very unethical ways of sourcing down, and most of the good ways of sourcing down are byproducts of the food industry. But again, it comes in different grades. But yes, I think they're I think some sort of system to say either how far this is travelled, where it's come from, and things like that. People would like to be aware of it. Certainly people have been very interested in their food products, so it's worked well there. It's how you can apply it to so many different other products.
One of the things which was mentioned in the EU Green Deal was having some form of taxation generally on based on the carbon footprint of imported products, and that would be quite interesting to see. I mean, I'll just give you an example of how things have changed with globalization. One of my hobbies is playing the guitar, the electric guitar. One of the factors you see now is guitar pedals, which are going for about 30 quid on eBay, and they're made in China. Probably the intellectual property has been ripped off from. I'm being a bit controversial here. Ripped off with some slight modification from existing designs and stuff. But when I was starting out on this, these things were made in the UK or the US, and you'd expect to spend between 100 and 150 quid for a pedal, and yet here they're now coming out from from China at 30 quid. It's just sort of like pocket money, and then you click on the eBay or think, oh, that might be quite nice. It's just money for nothing, and I think that's one of the problems.
So are we saying a carbon tax might be something we want to be pushing for?
Yeah, I want regulatory measures. I don't know.
Carbon tax on goods.
Yeah, on the way goods are, the carbon footprint of those goods.
So
there's also safety issues, around so many products. So many of these things, as you said, Simon, are coming out of, China and other places so cheaply. You have to question their, especially anything with any electrical connection to it. How sustainable are they? They're probably okay when they're brand new, but once they've been, bent, moved, I know there's lots of issues about, iPhone cables and things like this that they're fine when new, but by the time they've been bent around a bit and you see all these sort of things shorting out, and that's you're talking fire safety issues here, but yet some of these things appear, they travel halfway around the world and are still selling for pence. That just doesn't add up.
So, panel, I've got a couple of other questions for you. One is about repair shops, and the other is about share shops. What are your points of view on that, panel? Repair
was that Gemma's question, or
two questions? One was from Johnny, and one was from I can't remember where. Gemma, yeah.
Well, I think the share shop was something that I recently seemed to generate an awful lot of interest. I recently shared it on our page, and I'm assuming you're talking about a library of things type share shop.
The question was just share shop.
Yeah, so I'm assuming the share shop, what I mean by share shop is like a library of things. And I think, I suppose the discussion about it really is we have space in towns that could potentially put up these share shops. I was speaking to somebody from the Oxford Library of Things a couple of weeks ago, and they actually have a combined library of things and repair shop, and it just seemed like a no-brainer, really. that people buy things probably, like Simon says, cheap from China that break down after 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and you could buy, say, a lawnmower or whatever it might be, put it in your library of things share shop, and then people can use it. Or it could be, the suggestion was that you have things in there that are not used very often, like camping equipment or DIY equipment, drills, things like that. So I think it's a fantastic idea. I'd absolutely love to do it. I have no time at the moment, but I would love to do it.
So another avenue of interest and point where we might
Anybody
be able to make some kind of personal pledge. Something, yeah?
We see quite a bit of that in the outdoor industry. A lot of good quality kit that people aren't using anymore either ends up going to scout groups, things like that, because people understand it's still a serviceable product. It would be a shame to see it wasted, so it makes its way. I know there's a very strong online community for good outdoor products, because they want they don't want to see them go to waste. They want to see these things being used, and going back to the fast fashion, that's where the real issues have been, because of their their polluting nature, and the fact that yes, a lot of people are buying something, either not even wearing it or wearing it once and then just looking for something else. We're just creating more and more unnecessary waste, when good things, I know sort of younger people probably wouldn't be so keen on that, but a lot of people would much more, would appreciate a good product, and sometimes some of the bragging rights is, I've had this for goodness knows how long and have looked after it and kept up its condition.
So we need to encourage bragging rights for the length of time we've used it. So now, folks, just because I'm going to be mindful of the time, we can carry on again afterwards if you want, but basically I'm noticing the clock. And so I'm going to say that it's now time in that where we've asked all the questions that we can ask in this phase of the session. I'd like to invite everybody who's in on this call to just consider what it is they might be able to do or choose to do to take a positive action that they might want to make a commitment to make a difference in the future on this subject. There's a whole range of different ideas that have already come up. There's probably others that you may have thought of as the speakers have been speaking. So I'm just going to invite you now to take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to write down maybe 1 or 2 things on a piece of paper or somewhere that you can say, I know, in the next month I'll do that, or in the next 2 months I'll do that, or I'll make a lifestyle change and do that, or I'll investigate this, or something like that. So yeah, invite you to please think about things that you could make a personal commitment to, and you can put it into the chat or you can not. It's up to you whether you want to keep it personal, private, whether you want to share it. But so for 2 or 3 minutes, I'm just going to give some silence to me blathering on, and you're going to sit and think, what could I do to make a difference?
Oh, it's that dead air moment.
Oh, it's silence. It's beautiful.
Paul, I think you're getting all the sales. Your sales pitch must be awesome. Is it just that you sat in front of some shoes? And winter is coming.
Yeah.
My husband's like, what I want for Christmas is good shoes. And I'm like, okay, great. We'll go to see Paul. Job done.
I thought I'd better do it. I should at least just do the thing from the shop as I'm coming from the shopkeeper angle.
Job done.
I had to unmute just to shout at Paul. Yeah, clever sales trick. He's like, yeah, look at this lot. Yeah.
I didn't know where to angle it, Johnny. Do I put the jackets behind me, the footwear, or?
I think when we all joined, we thought you had background on, and it's like, no, this is my shop.
Look, it's real. It is my shop. Well, that's it. I'm one of those stupid shopkeepers who's still here at 7 o'clock at night doing bits and pieces. Trying to catch up for my missed November.
You could pretend that it's just that the Wi-Fi is better in the shop than it is at home.
Well, that's probably true.
So
I think
how are we doing there? You were watching the chat. Everybody watch the chat. See what's going on in there.
I think one of the important things, John, is that going back to a lot of the points that were made, that most of the interesting things, it's a collective of little things, isn't it? So, some of us, it can be as big things. I know I've ended up in conversations with people who've gone to electric cars that I talk about who would have never considered it, but most of it's just is a collection of all the small things that if we're all doing those little bits that help reduce either waste or emissions or travel, and also it just gives people a chance to discover what's actually in all their towns, and sometimes that's half the joy, is discovering the great businesses that are here. It's just that they're not under your nose or easily found.
So that's good. Anybody who's got any places they want to put in there as well, the places we can go to find ideal local places that are genuinely local, shove them in the chat. Great. And I keep hearing from Bridget from time to time. She comes out with a thing and says, oh, by the way, have you seen that? And I go, no, I haven't seen that. It's mainly because I'm staying at home most of the time, but there you go. Shop local Western Supermare.
I think it's really important to actually talk to people. If you just talk about what you're doing yourself instead of telling them what to do, say, oh, I did this and that was really fun. And it's like dropping a pebble in a pond. It makes ripples. So I think that is a bit of subliminal advertising.
Yes, that's right. That's right, Karen. So, folks, I'm thinking that we probably need to start wrapping up the formal meeting, though we can carry on ourselves if we want to. I'm quite happy to do that. If anybody would like to email their pledges to me, that would be very good. You can do that at john.cato, C-A-T-O, at n-somerset.gov.uk. If you want to put your pledge, your decision into the chat now, that would be really cool, because that I will circulate to everybody who's an attendee. And I'll make sure that I will edit up the recording of this later on, so people have got a recording of it. Anything else to say in terms of pledges? Make your pledge now. I'm making a pledge. I'm going to investigate this kind of share shop idea.
If anyone wants any of these bits and pieces, if they're relevant to pass on to either shops they know, it's about being proud to be a Western business. That's the one about spending money. And then that's the other one about spending the extra £5. I know other people are taking it up and sharing it in other areas. These are just some that I just happen to have in my shop, but always happy to
that's cool.
share
That's
them.
useful, because that would be good for other towns as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Different villages.
I think the other thing that, sorry, just on what I'd like to say is that maybe if everyone could take a pledge away to talk to other people about shopping locally, it's probably the best thing you can do.
That's a really
is just
good one.
engage with other people and just talk as much or as little as you want to your neighbours, friends, family, whoever, and just encourage them about benefits of shopping locally and what we've talked about tonight.
Yeah.
So certainly in the shops, and I was talking to a lot of the shops before doing this today, there definitely seems to be a groundswell of, initiative for shopping local. People are actually telling people in the shops, look, I'm on a mission to do all my shopping locally, or I've tried to get as much as I can physically locally. So the will is there. We just want it to continue on, from this, because the run up to Christmas is a bit of a honeymoon period for most shops, because people are having to buy presents and bits and pieces. The interesting bit is how we continue this going on into next year, and from the new year, when sales normally take a bit of a dip.
Yeah, and encouragingly, a lot of the people that I've bought off recently, just in our village, kind of craft stuff, they all said they've never been so busy. They have most people have sold out of products, certainly in Yatton anyway.
Yeah, you've got the Weston Collective in the Sovereign Centre. That's a good collection of sort of small producers. I think, Gemma, did you still have some people over in the stable as well?
Yeah, we've got quite a few small ones. We set up the artisan markets last year.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to run this year, but we had about 50 or 60 traders and about 500 people come through the doors each time we did that. So our plan for next year is to expand on that again and bring them back from probably March, hopefully. And just make that a bigger event for Grove Village, and just try to encourage that local bit a little bit more in the independents.
Yeah, I just spotted a question by Bob Bater saying, is there a comprehensive directory of local business for North Somerset? Do we know that?
So what I'm getting is, I've seen certain bits and pieces. I'm hoping to collate some of it from this meeting. So anything I find in here and anything I can find together, I will circulate to all the attendees here, and maybe I'll publish it somewhere else as well. But I don't know if there is a full comprehensive directory, and it'd be lovely to have one, for sure.
No, there is the Made in North Somerset website, but it's not got an awful lot of and I think Paul, you probably know better. Those We Are Local sites, which are We Are Nailsea, We Are Portishead, they're spin-offs of Made in that site? Is that right?
No,
they look the same basically. The layout of the sites look the same.
Yeah, like a lot of things, and unfortunately, all these ideas all sort of came at similar times. So the We Are Locals guys are certainly doing a lot nationally. It's just they happen to have been picked up. You know, we've used them in Weston Supermare. Nailsea are doing very well with them. Clevedon are doing something with them. I think Portishead are just coming online. So if anyone's from areas where they don't have something like that, I would encourage, you know, a local group. It's very difficult, just to give you it from a business perspective. You know, I've spent a lot of money. My shop, as an example, is very much a personal one-to-one shop because we're very specialist products. So boot fittings, clothing and stuff like that is very personal. We've spent an awful lot of money on a website, you know, that's very nice. It's e-commerce set up, but most of our work is done with one-to-one with people in the shop. And the problem to give you again, from a business point of view these days is that for smaller businesses, it's very difficult because, you know, you're supposedly supposed to have a website these days. You're probably supposed to have a Facebook page. You should probably have an Instagram page. Who knows, you might have a TikTok something. You should probably align yourself to this, that, and the other. But these are all things that, you know, someone has to attend to. And in small businesses, quite often people just kind of lose the will to live because you know, if you're not getting an email from someone's messaged you on your Facebook or you're something else or you're something else. So there's so many avenues, which going back to that sort of directive of sort of shops or not. No, one of the ideas is that hopefully, you know, these kind of shop local WSM, We Are Nailsea, Portishead, Clevedon, become a little bit of a directory like that. Most of the shops that are on there, the idea, that the original setup for them is that people can trade. So it's for a lot of the businesses who don't have a website and can't trade, the facility is there for them to sell very easily. The reality is a lot of the shops just want to get on there as a presence and be available. But it's certainly something somebody should look at. And we've highlighted to North Somerset in different business terms numerous times, is that there really isn't any kind of real directories.
So I think I'll take that one up, Paul. I think I'll have a look and see what I can do about that. So yeah, that's good. So what I'm going to do is I want to say thank you to everybody. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop the call. It just means I want to make sure that I say thank you to everybody before everybody has to rush off and go and do other things. So I don't know quite how you do a group clap or anything like that, but it's like, you know, like this I somehow do to all the speakers and everybody that turned up and all the questions that you put in the chat and all the answers you put in the chat and all the comments you put in the chat. So thank you very much indeed to everybody. Thoroughly appreciate you coming along. I thoroughly appreciate the speakers spending their time and energy and effort putting their talks together. I will circulate the information to all of the attendees for sure. And I won't call the meeting formally closed because you might want to carry on talking, which is fine. We can carry on talking now, but provisionally the meeting is closed, but we ain't, okay? So, yeah. Carry on, whatever any other answers we've got to say about here.
Sorry I missed you the other day, Gemma. Obviously you were with someone when I popped in, but I'll catch up soon.
No worries, yeah, no, it's fine. It's been a busy week.
So Gemma, tell me about, we're involved with Froome trying to set up a kind of a library of things, or was it?
I worked quite a lot with adventure, so most of the stuff we did at the Welsh Mill Hub, which was about kind of so all sorts of different things, like teaching younger people to fix things and make things out of recycled projects and all of that. And then obviously the share shop came up in the middle of Frome as well. So yeah, I did some kind of supporting work with getting that up and running, buying lots of rubbish and trying to get freebies off of different people to stock it and all those kinds of things. So yeah, so we had started down the route of looking at doing it for the stable, but just before COVID hit, and obviously everything's had to go on hold. So yeah, and then we've also got the uniform exchange. I don't know if which is where we teamed up with Hope Uniform Exchange. So they're a church group, and we've set up a shop a few doors down from us where people can bring in old uniform, and then other people can come and collect that for free as well, because that was another big area that we were looking at. And for next year, our plan is to try and set up a slow fashion shop of some kind as well, but looking more at trying to get the brands in so that it appeals more to the younger generation. So rather than it just being styled as a charity shop, it'll be styled properly as a really high-end kind of, it'll look like a high-end fashion shop, but it'll be about you know, trying to get the brands and things like that, so that the teenagers and you know, that kind of group can come in and get things that they might feel more comfortable with, and not trying to throw off that stigma really of going to a charity shop and turning up with something. So yeah,
there's something I did a little bit of work with Oxfam a couple of years ago, because some of the big charity shop, or the charity shops, do get like clothing from the range where, so the top brands may have decided to discontinue a line,
right.
So they may have like 1,000 pieces of a top shoe that they've decided not to sell anymore, or a t-shirt that they're not marketing anymore, and they do hand them to the charity shops for free, but they make the proviso, but that shop doesn't stock 100 of them. They just put, like, they have to put 2 in each store, so it doesn't like damage the reputational price of the company. Because I guess that's the challenge, isn't it? You know, Clark's has made this brand of shoe, and they don't want to their customer to then go to your shop instead of buying the newest shoe, because that's how they have to make their money. So I guess there's quite a challenge there in tallying that up, isn't there? Kind of,
that's kind of their problem.
If they pass them to you, that's fine.
Yeah, so you know, we've started, there was the Cancer Research Shop in Whirl, which is closed because of lease issues, but we're talking about maybe talking to them, because they now don't have a space in the town, but maybe partnering with them, branding it completely differently, because what they used to do was most of their products came from the Clifton stores that didn't sell, and then it got passed down. So I don't know, I think I'm hoping we can have some conversations with them and Weston Hospice and see if there's a way that we can work together to create a cooler model for it, but and you know, under a different guise maybe, but that actually gives the money back to the charity shops anyway, kind of thing. But we've literally only just started on it. So
I'll just find that, like, so I live in a smaller village, so I live in Backwell. John on this call is John Slay on this call, lots of Johns also in this village. So I think last summer my children were just starting school, and I knew there would be uniform all over the village that wasn't going to be worn that each child's growing up. And so I made sure we gathered it together, and it was available at the village hall. Then COVID happened this year and you couldn't do that, but one parent was willing to be the hub, and so the PTA, so that's the Parents Teachers Association, just runs that, and you pay £1 for an item of clothing, which of course is massively saving parents, and it's just, you know, kids grow and you pass it on. This week was the week that I decided that my daughter's second-hand grey tights that would not stay up over her bottom, she was allowed to have new, because I'm in her second year of school, and we've decided that it's a bit too embarrassing for her, and I'm a bit too mean. So
there's just so many things like that as well. I mean, so we do a similar thing in the village where I live, and we also do that with nativity costumes as well. So and
Halloween time, and like
World Book Day every year. World Book Day drives me crazy, because all it does is it's just rubbish costumes that people are spending a fortune on, and they wear them once and that's it. There's also like the other thing that we've been thinking about is the exam books as well, whether or not we can get enough exam books together that we can, all those things that don't really get used very much but cost a lot of money,
Yeah.
and then just kind of discarded afterwards. So I think there's loads, isn't there? If you sit and
There is
think,
loads.
there is a lot that can be done. So I think my question earlier or comment in the chat was, it's a shame how few businesses there were here. It would have been nice, you know, to have seen a few more of them, especially seeing as I'd imagine that, you know, we're slightly different to retail in some respects, but it's been a really hard year. You'd think there would be more people that wanted to find out what the discussion was going to be like tonight. How do we do that?
I was expecting, you know, there to be some comments off the back of the, you know, the local independent page when I put it on the local independent page, even if it was just some, you know, quizzical queries. But
I shared it in there as well, and I also shared it onto our page. There was a few likes, but nothing else, and it's just it doesn't really make sense because that's what people are shouting about all the time.
But maybe they think they know what they have to do. Like I guess I'm not trying to say that we've got this right or wrong, but I think most of us have a grasp of, and whether they know the greenhouse gases behind it. I think they do know that shopping local is a good idea. So maybe they didn't think that they needed. Do you know what I mean? But so my husband, another John, has just walked in the room. But he's got an idea and has just started talking to Angela Hicks at North Somerset Enterprise Agency to potentially start up a bit of a network of businesses interested in sustainability. So they might not be exclusively retail, but he's run a series of talks this autumn, 3 talks this autumn, under the banner of Greener Digital with the North Somerset Enterprise Agency, looking at how...
yesterday, I think.
Oh, right. Gemma Coles. He says and he sat darning his jeans. He sat fixing jeans. He's like, I've just sewn 3 jeans back together.
Oh,
and a pair of shorts, and a pair of shorts, and a pair of pajama bottoms as well. Hello, everyone.
You need to be more careful with your clothes.
Yeah, it does. This is the build-up of a year of needing to get the sewing machine out.
Hi, Gemma.
Hi.
But John's quite keen to get, so for businesses who want to know more about sustainability, and he doesn't want to bring only people who already are on that page. He wants to bring new people in. That was the idea of the training he'd been offering this autumn for free. But you know, that comes with, like Karen has said, the conversations with people and saying, it's a friendly group, come along to this, let's have a chat. And I think...
it's trying to change the...
Sorry.
Don't know if anybody can hear me. It's trying to change the conversation a little bit away from the usual kind of, you know, climate bashing that we can be guilty of, towards making it something that is I mean, I'm not no expert in sustainability. I guess I'd call myself an environmentalist, although I, you know, not always have called myself that. But you know, as a business owner, going to other business owners and saying, I've made these changes, it's actually ended up saving me money, and these are the impacts that those things have had. And I want to stand up as a business owner and say, I give a damn about things. And actually, I'm going to change the way that I mean, I work in digital. I've got a low carbon footprint, really, compared to a lot of other businesses. And yeah, I just want to change that conversation towards being about, you know, there are benefits to working in a sustainable way, without it being all about, you know, saving the planet necessarily. But, you know, that, you know, it goes part and parcel with other things that we can talk about. So
that's why I wanted to put that bit at the beginning of the, you know, my piece, is that a lot of our customers, you know, the fact that when we started 13 years ago, you know, we made that pledge never to use a plastic bag in the business was a personal decision between us at that time. It obviously wasn't an issue then, so we never made anything of it because our customers weren't interested in it. They used to comment that, oh, you know, your paper bags are nice, aren't they? And it wasn't something. And then, yeah, the whole background issue of our, you know, the green, the upcycling of all the displays in the shop, the fact that I've worked my way through all the types of transport to get to an electric car, they come off the back of conversations. but they are also a nice little addition to some of our customers. Oh, I never realised that you're running a hybrid.
Exactly.
You've now got electric. So they are benefits to my business, because people actually sometimes take us a bit more seriously, because they think, oh no, you're not just selling a load of products. You are actually, doing other aspects.
So I noticed Johnny's got his hand up.
Yeah, Johnny, go on.
Yeah. Come on, Johnny.
So it was just quickly to John. Hi, John.
Hi, Johnny.
Yes, that John. Yeah, I was like, hang on.
The rich John. Yeah. How many Johnnies?
Yeah.
You need
How many Johns?
Yeah.
I just wondered, John Gibbons, if you, in your sustainability approach to businesses, whether you thought of contacting Debbie Apted for the cleaner coastlines approach and the plastic free, whereas they're trying to remove plastic from businesses. So at the same time, you could have a too heavy,
Definitely. I mean, so I've been talking to Angela Hicks at the North Somerset Enterprise Agency. I've reached out to Gemma Coles. I don't know who she is. And because actually somebody from the stable came along to my sustainability talks and was interested in sort of pursuing that further. But we intend to reach out to various organisations. There's somebody pushing for talking about obviously the plastic reduction. So Debbie Apted being one of the people that we want to reach out to. Somebody else who is, is it you, Gemma, that's doing placemaking around? Somebody's doing placemaking in Weston.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're both involved with placemaking.
Right. So that's one of the reasons that we're reaching out to you, is to start talking about how sustainability can tie in with that side of things, and a few other places that we want to try to sort of network with.
He's kind of just starting a ball rolling, and he's still got to do a day job. But Johnny, I'll link everybody up. John Slayer, you waving to come in?
I am waving. As a one John who hasn't said anything yet, I thought I'd better chip in at some point. I mean, I'm very interested by the share shop. Bridget knows that I've recently become a councillor. I'm very interested in getting sort of sustainable practices. One thing we had in the village was a DIY place where you could buy, a couple of screws, whatever else. Now, of course, you have to buy 50, 20. And my idea of the share shop, and I like this library of things, an experience about, we all have to buy stuff. It sits in a garage or a shed. And I like this idea. Has anyone thought of doing this share shop with DIY equipment?
That's the
paint
exact idea.
And all those kind of things, which we have to buy in large quantities. We have to now from the village travel probably 5-10 miles to somewhere to go and get those things, and yet it's sitting around in the village of decent sized village, 5,000 people. It's sitting around not being used. I'm really interested to know how that might work. Based on what's going on. I think it's a really one thing I'm going to take away from this.
Yeah,
and work on it.
absolutely.
If Bridget lets
really
me,
good.
that is any
I think
problem.
that's really good.
So any advice on that, or anything that we can give to me, I would really appreciate it.
One thing I do want to
It sounds
say
exciting.
is if you want to buy individual little bits and pieces like screws and things like that, Clevedon DIY is the best place on the planet. So if you ever want to get, reasonable price, individual little bits and pieces, whatever, Clevedon DIY is really good. Don't know how far away you are from them.
I started my trade in DIY, so it was always fascinating to me that people would come along, and just because you put 10 screws in a packet with a nice description and a price, you could charge more than a box of 200. It just seemed crazy. So I grew up and started my life in a a proper old shop of weighing out nails, screws, fixings, working in London selling ridiculous escutcheons and finials for swanky shop homeowners in London, but everything was available DIY, like you say, loose.
Clevedon DIY, I wandered in there and I paid 10p for a screw or something like that. It's just easy. And I just recommend it to anybody that's anywhere in the area wants anything to do with DIY.
Well, I'll trump you on that one because John Brown's DIY, I think he's been around for 50 or 60 years. So basically they're in Nailsea.
I know.
And
I used to go there.
the fact that they still remember the old owner, like, remembers my granny and she died 35 years ago is pretty impressive skills, I think. But it's nice
test him out.
Yeah, it's nice when I think there's something about the local shop. You can go in and say, I was after this, and they'll say, well, we'll get it in for you. Where, okay, you know, we'll look up the catalogue, we'll work out how to get that for you. Whereas you don't get that from the main brand, you know, from the high street, whatever, the other opposite of that. John Slate, so living in a smaller community that's well connected, so this is kind of the benefit of the WhatsApp thing, is saying, does anyone have a mitre saw, and going to borrow it? And then does anyone have this, and then going to borrow it? And that lend culture is actually, I think, a real strength in the resilience of a community. The problem is scaling it up to a town or a city. But maybe you just need to recognise, because I know Nikki Webb was on this call, you know, I know that in her street, if you're having as a street level, they've had a sharing wall. So they put it out on the WhatsApp group. Has anyone got one of them? And someone says, I'll put it out on the wall now. And this is what's come out of COVID, is that kind of, the shops were shut. I needed some white paint. Has anyone got one? Yeah, here you go. And it's such a good thing for trust and resilience of a community. It's really mending some broken stuff. And I think that's very interesting. But I'm culturally, like, I feel like I'm quite un-British, that I will happily say, who can lend me this? If I break it, I'll pay you. Whereas the neighbour, the wife, is so proud that her husband owns one of everything. Oh, we've got one of everything in the shed. And I'm like, I'm really proud. We got one of nothing, and we'll borrow off you.
No, but if you had a father who never threw anything away, which probably our generation we have, I've got two of most things, because I got the ones I bought, I inherited from him, which I'm more than happy to borrow, to lend out as well. Yeah. So I think that
and then
library,
space, of course, we have space.
Library of things and the idea of a WhatsApp group. I think this is where I'm going to focus. It's already on my list of things to do, which Bridget knows about.
That is really good.
It's the way of doing it, I think.
That's really cool. Yeah. Definitely. Really good.
My local village has a Facebook group like that, and people share and swap and offer things that they don't need anymore. And it's working really well, but it's a fairly small village. It's Shipham, and they just Shipham shares, which is a nice
time. That's so nice.
Well, I think there's a benefit actually in small communities doing
Backwell
it.
Borrows.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Well, if anyone needs an 1.5 inch wood auger.
Well, that looks like it's a very useful tool there, Paul.
It looks like a corkscrew gone at the wrong scale. I love it.
It's for that big bottle of wine.
I'll remember next time.
How do you use that for shoe fitting, Paul?
I'll just remove a toe.
Yeah, it's for all the Crocs wearers. This will sort you out.
Right.
Nice. I think we genuinely would come down on Saturday, Paul. Oh no, I don't know if we can on Saturday. Maybe next week.
Oh dear.
No, just let me know whenever. You know, we can always work around. I may even be here Sunday yet. So.
Okay.
That sounds good. Hey folks, I'm going to call it an evening, I think.
Thank you very much.
Well done, John, and everybody involved. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, everybody, for showing up.
Thank you, everybody.
For engaging.
Sorry, Simon and some others left, but thanks to him too.
And lovely to meet you all. Absolutely lovely.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.